Have you ever looked up from whatever you were doing and realized your cat had been staring at you, completely still, completely silent, unblinking, for what might have been a very long time? Not at a toy, not at the window, not at something moving across the ceiling. At you, just you, with that deep, fixed, ancient gaze that somehow manages to feel both completely calm and slightly unsettling at the same time. Most people laugh it off. They call it creepy, they make a joke about it online, and move on. But what if that stare, that long, motionless, penetrating gaze your cat fixes on you without warning, is not random? What if your cat is not simply zoning out or being odd? What if it is, in that moment, perceiving something about you and the world around you that you cannot perceive yourself? Because here's the thing, what a cat actually sees when it looks at you goes so far beyond what we understand as vision that it barely belongs in the same category. The world your cat inhabits, the one it is reading every time it opens those eyes, is so different from the world you experience that understanding it will permanently change how you feel when that unblinking gaze finds you across a quiet room. Stay with me, because the most disturbing and the most beautiful part of this story is still ahead, and once you hear it, that stare will never feel the same again. Let's begin where the story actually starts. Not with the stare itself, but with the eyes behind it. A cat's eye is one of the most extraordinary optical instruments that evolution has ever produced. From the outside, we notice the obvious things, the vertical pupil that opens and closes like a camera shutter, the unsettling range of colors, the way they seem to glow in low light in a way that has unnerved humans for thousands of years. But what most people don't realize is that these external features are just the surface of something far more complex happening inside. The structure of a cat's eye is built for a world that humans simply cannot access. Behind the retina, the light-sensitive layer at the back of the eye, cats possess something called the tapetum lucidum, a mirror-like layer of cells that reflects light back through the retina a second time, giving the photoreceptors a second chance to capture it. This is what makes their eyes glow in photographs, and it is what gives them the ability to see in light levels roughly 6 times lower than what the human eye requires. Think about what that actually means. When you are sitting in a dimly lit room in the evening, squinting slightly, the world soft and blurred around the edges, your cat is seeing that same room in something approaching full clarity. The shadows that hide things from you are not shadows to your cat. The dark corners that make your home feel smaller and more uncertain at night are open, readable, clear. Your cat has been navigating a world you are partially blind to every single day of its life, and when it stares at you in the dark, with those wide, luminous eyes, it may be seeing you in far greater detail than you are seeing it. Something deeper is happening here than a pet sitting in a room with its owner. Your cat has been seeing a version of you and a version of your world that you have never once been able to witness yourself. But here's where the story takes a turn that most people are not prepared for. It's not just the quantity of light that a cat's eye processes differently, it's the quality, the type, the frequency of it. And this is where things get genuinely extraordinary. For years, researchers suspected that cats might be capable of seeing wavelengths of light that fall outside the range visible to humans, specifically ultraviolet light, the high-frequency light that is filtered out by the human lens before it ever reaches our retinas. In 2014, a study published in the Proceedings of the Royal Society confirmed it. Cats, along with dogs and a number of other mammals, can indeed see into the ultraviolet spectrum. Now let that land for a moment, because UV light doesn't just exist outside in sunlight. It exists inside our homes. It reflects off surfaces in patterns we are completely unable to perceive. Certain flowers have UV patterns invisible to us that guide pollinators directly to their center. Some animals have UV markings on their bodies that they use for recognition and communication, markings that are entirely invisible to human eyes, but that glow with information to those who can see them, and it exists in very small amounts in everyday indoor light, reflecting off walls, off floors, off the clothes you're wearing, off your skin. When your cat stares at you, it may not be seeing quite the same person you see when you look in the mirror. It may be seeing a version of you that includes information, patterns, contrasts, markings that your own eyes are architecturally incapable of registering. You are, in a very real and scientific sense, partially invisible to yourself in ways that are not invisible to your cat. What most owners don't realize is that every time their cat has ever looked at them, it may have been processing a visual reality that exists just one step outside the boundaries of what we can ever directly know. Your cat has access to a layer of you that you will never be able to see, and it has been seeing it, quietly, every day you have spent together. Now let's talk about the stare itself, because the visual, Capacity of the cat is only half of this story. The other half is what that stare is actually doing, what the cat is looking for, and what happens inside its mind when it finds you in its gaze. Cats are predators. This is a fact so familiar that most of us have stopped truly reckoning with it, but it matters here more than it might seem. Because the stare, that still, fixed, unblinking gaze, is rooted in one of the most fundamental behaviors in the feline predatory toolkit. When a cat locks its eyes onto something and goes completely still, it is in a mode of concentrated processing that has no real equivalent in human experience. Every muscle is quieted so that no movement draws attention. The eyes stop blinking because blinking means a fraction of a second of lost visual information. The world narrows to a single point of focus, and the brain, behind those still and steady eyes, is running a remarkably sophisticated calculation, tracking micro movements, reading subtle signals, building a picture of what the subject is doing, how it is moving, and what it is likely to do next. This is where it gets interesting, because this same mode of focused predatory attention, the one your cat evolved to use on prey, is the same mode it uses when it stares at you. Not because it is considering you as prey, but because the most powerful attentional tool your cat possesses, the one it reaches for when it wants to truly understand something, is this particular quality of stillness and focus. And when it turns that focus on you, when you become the object of that ancient concentrated gaze, you are receiving something that, in the language of your cat's biology, is one of the most intense forms of attention it can offer. Your cat is not zoning out when it stares at you. It is reading you with everything it has. And this is where the story becomes something I think you need to sit with for a moment. Because what your cat is reading when it watches you like that is more intimate than most people are comfortable knowing. Cats are exquisitely sensitive to physiological change in the beings around them. Their visual system is specifically tuned to detect micro movements, the tiny, involuntary shifts that larger animals miss entirely. They can see the slight changes in your breathing pattern, the almost imperceptible tension that moves through your shoulders before you consciously register that something is wrong. The particular quality of stillness in your body that differs between focused concentration and emotional distress. Research in human-animal interaction has documented something remarkable. Cats consistently alter their behavior in response to changes in their owner's emotional state. And they do this before the owner has shown any obvious external signal, before the tears come, before the sigh, before the human has even fully acknowledged to themselves that something has shifted. What most owners don't realize is that this happens, at least in part through vision. Your cat is watching your face and your body with a level of attentive detail that most humans never apply to each other. It is tracking the micro expressions that flicker across your features too quickly for the human eye to consciously register. It is monitoring the rhythm of your chest, the looseness or tightness of your posture, the way your eyes move, the speed at which you blink. Your cat has built, over the months and years of watching you, an extraordinarily detailed model of what you look like when you are okay and what you look like when you are not. And it uses that model, continuously and automatically, to understand your state at any given moment. Something deeper is happening here than a cat sitting across the room staring at nothing. Your cat has been studying you with a scientific patience and precision that no person in your life has ever applied to you. It knows what you look like from the inside out in ways you have never bothered to. Know yourself. Now let's go somewhere unexpected, because there is one more dimension to what your cat sees when it looks at you, and this one sits at the edge of what science can currently explain. It is the part of this story that tends to make people quiet. There is a body of documented, peer-reviewed research, still contested, still being investigated, suggesting that cats and other animals may detect subtle changes in electromagnetic fields, in subtle chemical signals carried through the air, and in shifts in barometric pressure. These abilities have been studied most extensively in the context of animals detecting natural disasters, earthquakes, storms, seizures in their owners, before any equipment has registered the change. There are accounts, thousands of them, from around the world, of cats behaving strangely in the minutes and hours before an earthquake strikes, of cats who position themselves near their owners before a medical event the owner wasn't aware was coming, of cats who react to the onset of a seizure before it begins, pressing themselves against their person with an urgency that has no obvious cause. The science is still unfolding, the mechanisms are still being understood, but the pattern is there, documented across cultures and centuries and continents, and it points towards something that the data on UV vision and micro-movement detection has already been building toward. Your cat may be sensing dimensions of physical reality that fall entirely outside the range of human perception. Not paranormally, not magically, but biologically, through sensory systems so different from ours that the information they receive has no equivalent in our experience. When your cat stares at nothing, at a blank wall, at a corner of the ceiling, at the empty space behind your shoulder, it is entirely possible that it is responding to something real, something that its senses are registering with complete accuracy, something that simply exists beyond the reach of yours. And when it stares at you, long and still and with those depthless ancient eyes, it is reading a version of you that includes information from every one of those channels. Sound below the range of your hearing, light beyond the spectrum of your vision, heat signatures and chemical signals and electromagnetic shifts that compose a portrait of you so complete that it makes the image you see in the mirror look flat. So let's return, at the end of all of this, to that moment. The one that started this story. You're reading, or working, or sitting quietly in the early evening, and the world is going at its ordinary pace. And you look up, and your cat is staring at you, completely still, completely focused, those wide, extraordinary eyes fixed on you with an attention so complete that everything else in the room seems to fall away. Before today, maybe that moment felt strange, a little funny, a little unsettling in a way you couldn't quite name, but now you know what is actually happening behind those eyes. You know that your cat is seeing you in ultraviolet light you cannot access, that it is reading your breathing, your micro-expressions, your posture, your emotional state, with a perceptual precision that no human being on earth could match, that it may be detecting signals from your body and your environment that exist in registers of reality you have never once been able to consciously perceive. Your cat is not staring at nothing. It is not staring through you or past you or into some unknowable void. It is staring at you, all of you, the full, complete, layered, extraordinary reality of you, in all the frequencies and signals and dimensions of information that its ancient, exquisitely designed self is capable of receiving. And it is choosing, in that moment, to make you the center of all of it. Not the window, not the wall, not the moving shadow or the interesting sound or the world just outside the glass. You, whatever your cat sees when it looks at you, with all of those senses, in all of those dimensions, with all of that quiet, focused, total attention, you are what it keeps coming back to. That is not nothing. That is not a mystery to be unsettled by. That is the most complete and undivided attention you will ever receive from any living creature on earth. And now, when you look up and find those eyes on you, you will know exactly what it means. If this story gave you a new way of seeing the creature that has been watching over you all along, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to keep exploring the extraordinary sensory world of cats, stay right here. There is so much more to discover.